The silent fear. The night was always the same for her, dark, endless, and filled with sounds that made her heart beat faster. The alien girl sat near the entrance of her small shelter, holding her knees close, her large eyes watching the forest beyond. Every rustle of the leaves made her flinch. Every distant growl made her breath freeze. The beast was out there, she knew it, and it was always searching. Her people whispered stories about it. They said no one who saw the beast ever returned. They said its eyes burned like fire, its claws could tear through stone, and its roar could shake the sky, but no one had seen it clearly. Only shadows, only destruction left behind. The alien girl had grown up hearing these stories, and with each year her fear only grew stronger. Tonight was no different. The sky was dark and heavy, the twin moons hiding behind thick clouds. Wind carried strange cries across the valley, cries that did not belong to birds or animals. She pulled a thin blanket tighter around herself. Though it gave no real warmth, her people lived in fear, hiding each night, praying for the dawn. But she feared more than most, because once she thought she had seen the beast. It was only a flash many months ago. She had been gathering food at the edge of the forest when she felt something watching her. The trees were silent, the air heavy. Then, from between the shadows, two glowing eyes appeared. They were not close, yet she felt their weight pressing down on her soul. She had dropped her basket and run, her legs shaking, her breath ragged. Since that day, she never walked near the forest again, but the fear never left. The others told her she imagined it. They laughed at her weakness, saying the beast was only a tale told to keep children inside at night. But she knew better. She had seen those eyes, and she could still feel them in her dreams. No laughter, no words could take away that memory. The night grew colder, and silence fell deeper. Her small fire had burned out hours ago, leaving only faint smoke. She dared not light another, fearing it would draw the beast closer. Her hands trembled as she hugged herself tighter, listening to the emptiness around her. Every shadow seemed alive. Every tree seemed to lean closer. She closed her eyes, whispering to herself, "Just until morning. Just survive until morning." But fear had a way of stretching time. Every second felt like an hour. Every sound louder than it should be. A branch cracked in the distance, and she gasped, covering her mouth with her hands. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might echo through the night. Was it the beast? Was it coming for her? The wind shifted, and the smell of damp earth filled the air. She waited, frozen, unable to move. Her mind screamed to run, but her legs refused. Her eyes darted left and right, searching, searching. The forest beyond her shelter was dark, but not empty, she felt. It, the same way she had felt it before. Something was watching her, hidden in the blackness. Tears gathered in her eyes, but she refused to make a sound. If she cried, it would hear. If she moved, it would see. So she sat still, as silent as the stones around her. Her breath came in shallow gasps, her body shaking with terror. She thought of her family, her people, all hiding in their homes. No one would come for her. No. One would stand between her and the beast. And in that long, heavy silence, she felt more alone than ever. The alien girl was not just afraid of the beast outside. She was afraid of the helplessness inside. She hated her weakness, hated the way she could do nothing but wait. Her fear was a cage, and the beast was the key, but she was too afraid to even touch the lock. Hours passed, though they felt like days. The clouds drifted, and one pale moonlight broke through. It touched the trees, the rocks, and finally her face. She stared at the silver glow and wished she could be strong like the light. But the moment passed quickly, swallowed again by shadows, and with it, her hope dimmed. Suddenly, a sound echoed louder than any before. A roar, deep and powerful, rolling through the forest like thunder. It shook the ground, sent birds flying into the sky. Her blood turned cold, her body stiff as stone. That was no story, no imagination, no childish fear. The beast was real, and it was closer than ever. She pressed her hands against her ears. but the echo still rattled inside her chest. Her eyes darted wildly, searching for a way to escape, but there was none. There was only the forest, the shadows, and the fear. Her lips moved without sound, whispering prayers to anyone who might listen. But in her heart, she knew, if the beast came tonight, there would be no tomorrow. And so, the alien girl sat in her silent fear, waiting for the darkness to end, waiting for something, anything, to change, unknowing that soon a human stranger would arrive, and nothing, neither her fear nor the beast, would ever be the same again. The human's arrival, the morning sun rose slowly, spreading pale light across the valley. The alien girl sat outside her shelter, her eyes red from a night without sleep. Her body was still trembling, the sound of the beast's roar echoing in her mind like a wound that would not heal. Her people avoided speaking of it, pretending nothing had happened. But she knew the truth. The beast was closer than ever, and soon it would come for them all. She walked toward the stream to fetch water, her steps heavy. The air was cool, the ground damp with dew, but peace never touched her heart. Every shadow seemed to hold danger. Every breeze carried whispers of claws and teeth. She knelt near the water and dipped her hands in, hoping the chill would calm her. But then she froze, because she was not alone. A sound came from the trees, not the growl of the beast, not the cry of an animal. It was footsteps, heavy but steady. Her heart raced. No one from her people walked here in daylight. They feared the forest too much. She rose quickly, ready to run. When a figure stepped into the clearing, it was not the beast, not anything she had ever seen before. It was a human, tall, broad-shouldered, his clothes torn from travel, and his face lined with dirt and exhaustion. But his eyes were alive, sharp, and fearless, scanning the land like a hunter searching for his prey. The alien girl gasped, clutching the jug of water so tightly it almost slipped. She had heard whispers about humans, wanderers from the stars, but she had never believed them. And now one stood in front of her, very real, very strange. The human looked at her with surprise, then spoke, his voice deep and calm. She could not understand every word, but she caught enough to know he meant no harm. His tone carried no threat, no cruelty, only tired honesty. Still, fear made her step back. Her body tense, she wanted to run, but his eyes stopped her. They were not like the beast's burning eyes of terror. They were steady, like fire that warmed instead of destroyed. The human raised his hands slowly, showing he carried no weapon in them. Then he pointed to his chest, spoke his name, and waited. The alien girl hesitated, her lips trembling. Finally she whispered her own name, the sound quiet as the breeze. He smiled, just a faint curl of his lips, but it was the first smile she had seen in a long time. The silence stretched, broken only by the stream's flow. Then he pointed to the forest, his eyes narrowing. He had heard the beast too, she realized. His voice grew firm as he asked questions she barely understood, but she recognized one word: beast. Her heart sank, her eyes filled with fear, and she shook her head quickly. Danger, she whispered, her voice breaking. Stay away, the beast will come. The human studied her face, her trembling hands, her fearful eyes, and then he did something strange, something she could not understand. He laughed, a short sound, not mocking but fearless. He stood taller, his hand tightening on the strange weapon slung across his back. With firm steps, he walked toward the forest as if daring the shadows to challenge him. The alien girl gasped, chasing after him, grabbing his arm. No, she pleaded, shaking her head. You do not know what it is, you cannot fight it. But he only looked down at her, his gaze steady. He spoke words she could not fully understand, but she felt their meaning in his tone. He was not afraid. To him, the beast was not an unstoppable nightmare, it was a challenge. For the first time in her life, the alien girl saw someone look at the forest not with terror, but with courage. Her breath caught in her chest, a strange feeling rising within her, hope, small but alive. The human's presence was different, unnatural to her world. But in that difference lay something her people had lost strength. As the sun climbed higher, the human walked with her back toward the village. Every step he took seemed to push back the fear that had ruled her life. Her people saw him from a distance and gasped. They gathered quickly, whispering, hiding their children behind them. The alien elders frowned, their eyes full of doubt. A stranger from the stars was not welcome, not trusted. But when the human raised his hand in greeting, his voice calm. They did not attack, they watched, wary but curious. That night, the alien girl sat near the human by the dying fire. She studied his face, the quiet strength in his eyes. He asked her again about the beast, his voice steady, patient. She told him what she knew, the roar, the claws, the glowing eyes. Her voice shook as she spoke, but he listened without fear. When she finished, his jaw tightened, and he nodded to her shock. He did not plan to run or hide. Instead, he promised her safety, his words like iron. The alien girl stared at him, her fear and disbelief fighting inside her. No one had ever promised such a thing. No one had ever dared. Her people believed the beast could not be stopped. But this human believed otherwise, and though her heart trembled with doubt, a part of her wanted to believe too. That night, when she closed her eyes, she did not feel as alone as before. The beast was still out there, waiting, hunting. But now, there was also a human, a stranger with courage, and somehow, his courage began to change everything. Asterisk whispers in the dark. The human's presence changed the village. Where there had once been only silence and fear, now there were whispers. The alien girl noticed it each day. The way her people watched him from behind doors. The way children peeked at him from corners. They feared him, yes, but they also felt something else, curiosity. It was the same feeling that now lived inside her. Though she tried to hide it, the human worked with steady hands, repairing his weapon, sharpening tools he carried. He moved with confidence, never hurried, never shaken. When others looked at the forest with dread, he looked at it like a soldier studying the battlefield. The alien girl often sat nearby, though she pretended she was only passing. He would speak sometimes, pointing at objects, repeating their names in his language. Slowly, she began to understand him, word by word, and slowly she found herself speaking back. But every night, the fear returned. The forest was alive with sounds. Heavy footsteps on the soil, growls rolling like thunder beneath the ground. The beast never showed itself fully, but it left reminders: broken branches, claw marks on stone, the remains of animals torn apart. The alien girl trembled each time she saw them. Her people shook their heads, muttering prayers. Yet the human did not tremble. He would kneel near the marks, his fingers tracing the ground, his eyes sharp with thought. It was as if he was not afraid of the beast, but curious about it, like a hunter studying prey. One evening, as the sun sank and shadows grew long, the alien girl followed him against her better judgment. He moved silently into the forest, the strange weapon slung across his back. The trees swallowed them. The air grew colder. She clutched her chest, her steps quick and light, her breath tight in her throat. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, but she could not leave him alone. Something deep inside told her he needed to be watched. Or maybe she needed to be near him. They stopped near a clearing. The human crouched low, studying the ground. She crept closer and saw what he had found. A massive footprint, deep in the soil, larger than any creature she had ever known. Her legs weakened, her hands shook. It was proof the beast was here, closer than ever. Her lips parted to warn him, to beg him to leave. But he only pressed his palm against the print, his expression calm. "Big," he murmured, and then gave a small smile, as if the danger made him stronger. The alien girl turned away, hugging herself. How could he smile at something that haunted her every dream? Her breath quickened as the forest grew darker. The air carried strange whispers. Not words, not sounds of animals. It was something else, something unnatural. Her eyes darted, her ears straining. The human noticed her trembling, and for a moment, His hand rested on her shoulder. Steady and warm, it calmed her enough to breathe, but the whispers remained, sliding through the trees like shadows of voices. They returned to the village before. Full darkness fell. Her people scolded her for walking so far into the forest, their eyes burning with fear and anger, but they dared not scold the human. He stood tall, his weapon across his back, and they could not meet his gaze. The alien girl sat by the fire that night, staring into the flames. The whispers echoed in her head, the print of the beast burned in her memory, and yet, through it all, she thought of his hand on her shoulder, and the calm in his eyes. Later that night, when the village was silent, she woke suddenly. The whispers had returned, stronger, closer. She sat upright, her eyes wide, her body frozen. The sound was not like speech, but like thoughts pressing against her skull. The beast was near. She knew it. Her skin prickled. Her chest tightened. She stumbled outside, the night air cold against her skin. The forest loomed dark and endless, the whispers flowing from it like smoke. And then she saw him. The human was already awake, standing at the edge of the village, weapon in hand. His eyes scanned the forest with sharp focus. He had heard it too, she realized, but unlike her, his body did not tremble. His hands did not shake. He looked into the dark as though daring it to come closer. The alien girl stood a few steps behind him, her fear rising. Her lips moved in. Whisper, "It's here." He did not turn, only nodded. The night stretched, heavy and endless. The whispers faded slowly, swallowed by the forest again. But the tension remained, wrapping around them like chains. She knew then that the beast was not only real, it was watching, waiting, testing them, and she knew that the human, unlike anyone else, would not run. He was preparing, step by step, for the moment when shadows would turn into teeth. And though fear still ruled her heart, she felt something new stirring inside her, a question, a possibility, a hope she had never dared hold. If the human was not afraid of the beast, could it mean that the beast was not unstoppable after all? The first confrontation, the night was heavy with silence, too heavy. Even the insects had stopped singing. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The alien girl sat close to the fire, but the warmth could not stop the cold in her chest. She knew something was coming. The whispers from the forest were louder than ever, pressing against her mind like unseen hands. Her people stayed inside their shelters, doors barred, children hidden. Only she and the human remained outside, waiting. The human stood at the edge of the village, his strange weapon in hand. The firelight danced across his face, showing calm where fear should have been. He did not move, did not tremble. He only listened, his head tilted toward the forest as though hearing a rhythm only he could understand. The alien girl hugged herself tightly, her voice small. "It's close," she whispered, her breath shaky. He only gave a slow nod, his eyes never leaving the trees. Then it happened. The ground trembled first, a deep rumble that shook the soil beneath their feet. The fire flickered wildly, sparks flying into the air. The alien girl stumbled back, her legs weak. The human stepped forward, bracing himself. A roar shattered the silence, a sound so powerful it rattled the bones inside her chest. The village echoed with screams as doors slammed shut and cries filled the night. From the forest, shadows moved. Something massive pushed through the trees, snapping trunks like twigs. The alien girl's breath caught, her heart raced. And then, the beast stepped into the moonlight. Its body was enormous, covered in thick scales that glistened like black stone. Its eyes glowed like fire, its teeth sharp and endless. The air around it seemed to shake with hatred and hunger. It was not just an animal, it was fear given flesh. The alien girl collapsed to her knees, tears spilling down her face. This was the end, she thought. No one could face this. No one could fight it. But then, she heard the click of metal. The human raised his weapon, his stance firm, his eyes locked on the beast. The creature roared again, the sound shaking the sky, but the human did not step back. Instead, he shouted, his voice fierce, defiant. The alien girl could not understand the words, but she felt their meaning. He was daring the beast to face him. The beast lunged forward, the ground splitting beneath its weight. The human fired, the blast tearing through the night. Light and sound exploded together, striking the beast's chest. It staggered but did not fall, roaring louder, angrier. The alien girl covered her ears, her body shaking, but she could not look away. The beast charged, its claws digging into the earth, its jaws wide. The human rolled aside. The creatures strike smashing into the ground where he had stood. He fired again, sparks flying as the shot struck its shoulder. The smell of smoke and burning flesh filled the air. The alien girl gasped, her heart torn between fear and hope. He was fighting. It truly fighting it, but the beast was faster than she imagined. It swung its massive tail, striking the ground with thunderous force. The human was thrown off his feet, his weapon sliding across the dirt. The alien girl screamed, rushing forward before she could stop herself. Her hands shook as she reached him, his body bruised, his breath ragged, but his eyes were still alive. Still burning with fire, he pushed himself up, blood on his face, and looked at her. "Run," he whispered, though his voice was firm, but she could not. Her legs refused to move. The beast roared again, its eyes fixed on them both. It stepped closer, its claws sinking deep into the soil. The alien girl clutched the human's arm, sobbing, but he pulled free, standing tall despite his wounds. He picked up his weapon, aimed again, and fired straight into its glowing eyes. The blast was blinding. The beast howled, staggering back in pain. For the first time it retreated, crashing through the trees, its roar fading into the distance. The silence that followed was unbearable. The alien girl fell to the ground, shaking, her hands covering her face. She could not believe it. The beast had been hurt. It had bled. No one had ever stood against it. No one had ever made it retreat. Yet this human had done it, not with fear, but with courage. He stumbled to her side, his breathing heavy, his body trembling with exhaustion. She looked at him through tears, her voice breaking. "You fought. Eat," she whispered. "You did not run." He gave a faint smile, though blood ran from his lip. His eyes burned with the same fire. And in that fire, she saw something she had never seen before, a chance, that night. As the village slowly calmed, whispers filled the air again, but they were not whispers of fear. They were whispers of hope. The alien girl lay awake, her mind racing. The beast was still out there, more dangerous than ever. But now she knew something she had never dared believe. The beast could be fought. And the human was the proof. The humans planned. The village did not sleep after the attack. The cries of children mixed with the whispers of the elders. Everyone knew the beast had come closer than ever. And though it had retreated, it would return, stronger, angrier. Fear gripped the people like chains. But when their eyes turned to the human, they saw something else. Not fear, not despair, but determination. The human sat near the dying fire, his weapon across his lap. Blood still marked his face, but he ignored it. His hands moved with purpose, cleaning, repairing, tightening every piece of his strange weapon. The alien girl sat close, watching him, her heart still racing from what she had seen. No one had ever hurt the beast. No one had ever stood so firmly against it. And now, even wounded, he prepared for the next time. The alien elders gathered, their voices low but filled with doubt. "This beast cannot be defeated," they muttered. "It has haunted us for generations. Nothing can kill it." But the human shook his head. He spoke firmly, his voice calm yet unyielding. Though she could not understand all the words, the alien girl understood his meaning. He had a plan. The next morning, the human walked into the forest. The alien girl followed, though fear gnawed at her heart. He moved slowly, marking trees with strange symbols, studying the ground. He collected branches, stones, vines, and began shaping them into traps. Simple but clever things, spikes hidden beneath leaves, snares that tightened when stepped on. He explained in broken words, pointing, drawing in the dirt. And though she struggled to follow, she understood one thing: he was preparing. At first, she thought it was madness. How could traps stop something so massive, so unstoppable? But the human was not reckless. He was patient. Every step was measured, every detail studied. He was not planning to meet the beast with strength alone. He was planning to outthink it. He trained each day, and soon he began to train her too. He placed a stick in her hands, showing her how to hold it, how to strike, how to block. Her arms shook, her movements clumsy, but he corrected her with patience. She wanted to refuse, to run back to safety, but when his eyes met hers, steady and certain, she found herself trying again. Day after day, he drilled her, not just in fighting, but in courage. Do not close your eyes, he told her. Fear makes you blind. At night, when the forest whispered, she no longer hid. Instead, she sat near him by the fire, listening as he spoke of his world. She did not understand all his words, but his tone carried strength. A world where humans faced storms, wars, and dangers greater than fear itself. And somehow they endured. She listened with wide eyes, realizing that courage was not just his strength, it was his way of living. The alien girl began to change. Slowly, where once she froze at every sound, now she forced herself to stand still. Where once she trembled at the forest's edge, now she walked with him among the trees. She still feared, but she no longer let it rule her. The human had shown her that fear could be fought, not by running, but by facing it. One evening, he set a circle of stones and placed sharpened stakes in the ground. She watched him, confused, until he lifted his head and spoke. "Final battle," he said simply, her breath caught, her chest tightening. He was not just preparing to fight again, he was preparing to end it. The elders protested when they learned of his plan. "You will bring the beast closer," they cried. "You will doom us all." But the human stood tall, his voice firm. He was not asking their permission, he was warning them. This fight was coming, whether they liked it or not. The alien girl stepped forward. Trembling, her people begged her to stay, to hide, to live. But she shook her head, her voice soft but steady. "I will help him," she said, for the first time. She chose not fear, but courage. The human looked at her with a faint smile, the kind that carried no words. Together, they prepared. Each trap was hidden carefully, each weapon sharpened. Every step closer to the final battle made her heart pound. Yet for the first time, her heart pounded not only with fear, but with fire. That night, as the moons rose high, the forest stirred. The whispers were louder than ever, the air thick with warning. The beast was coming, drawn by the challenge, drawn by the defiance. The alien girl stood beside the human at the edge of the traps. Her hands shook, her breath quickened. But when she looked at him, calm and steady as ever, she whispered to herself, "Fear will not own me." And so the stage was set. The village watched from behind their doors, praying, trembling. But at the center of the valley stood a human and an alien girl, two figures against the terror of the forest, waiting for the moment when courage and fear would finally clash. The final battle. The night was alive with whispers, louder than ever before. The trees shivered though the wind was still. The ground trembled though nothing had touched it. The alien girl stood beside the human, her heart racing like a trapped bird. The traps were ready, the weapons sharpened, the fire pits hidden beneath branches all around them. The forest felt like it was holding its breath, waiting. The human crouched low, his eyes scanning the dark. He said few words, but every movement carried meaning. He pressed his hand against the earth, feeling the vibration. "The beast," he whispered, and she felt the weight of the word. It was coming. The first roar split the silence, shaking the air like thunder. The alien girl clutched her weapon, her hands trembling. The sound grew closer, trees cracking, birds scattering into the night sky. Her people watched from their shelters, eyes wide with terror. but no one moved to help. Only she and the human stood in the open, facing the shadow that ruled there. Nightmare as the ground split as the beast charged into the valley. Its massive form glistened in the moonlight, scales black as obsidian, eyes burning red. Each step was an earthquake, each breath a storm. The alien girl froze for a moment, her fear screaming inside her. But then she felt the human's steady hand brush her arm. "Stay," he said, his voice calm, and somehow the word anchored her. The beast roared and lunged, its claws tearing into the soil. The human shouted, firing his weapon, light and sound. Exploding into the night, the blast struck the beast's chest, forcing it back, but it only enraged the creature. Its roar louder, its movements faster. The human dodged aside, leading it toward the traps. The alien girl followed, her weapon shaking in her hands. The first trap snapped shut, a pit lined with sharpened stakes. The beast fell partly into it, howling, its blood spraying dark against the ground. The alien girl gasped, her eyes wide. It could bleed. It could be hurt, but the beast clawed free with terrifying strength. Snapping the stakes like twigs, its tail swung, smashing the earth. The shockwave knocking her off her feet, she cried out, her breath stolen. But before despair took her, the human's hand pulled her up again. "Fight," he said, his eyes burning. And for the first time, she believed she could. The battle raged across the valley. Fire pits ignited as the beast stepped into them. Flames licked its scales, smoke filled the air. It roared, blinded, thrashing, tearing trees from the ground. The human moved like a storm, firing, striking, dodging with precision. But the beast was relentless, every blow of its claws nearly fatal. The alien girl swung her weapon once. Weak, but she struck its leg. The sound rang in her ears, the shock running up her arms. But she had done it. She had touched the terror. And she did not collapse. The beast turned toward her, its eyes blazing. Her knees shook, but she held her ground. Her fear screamed, but her courage shouted louder. She raised her weapon again. Though she knew she could never match its power, the human stepped between them, blocking the beast's strike. His weapon fired again, smoke and light filling the night. The alien girl stumbled back, her heart breaking. He was bleeding, battered, but still standing, still fighting. The final trap was ready, the circle of stones lined with hidden fire. The human shouted, his voice like thunder, drawing the beast into the center. He signaled her, his eyes fierce. She understood, though he spoke no words. Together, they moved. She lit the last fuse, sparks racing across the ground. The fire erupted around the beast, flames rising high. It roared, thrashing, its scales cracking under the heat. The human fired one last time, the blast striking its chest. The beast staggered, its roar breaking into a guttural cry. And then, with a final crash, it collapsed, shaking the earth. Silence fell, heavy and unreal. The alien girl dropped her weapon, her chest heaving, tears streaming down her face. She had thought this moment impossible, a dream too fragile to believe. But it was real. The beast was down, its body still, its eyes dim. She looked at the human, his body bruised, blood running down his arm, yet his eyes still burned with that steady fire. He met her gaze and gave the faintest smile. It was over. The villagers emerged slowly, their eyes wide with shock and awe. Whispers spread like wind whispers, not of fear, but of victory. The alien girl stood taller than ever before, her fear not gone, but no longer her master. She had faced the beast, and she had survived. And it was because of him, the human who carried courage like a weapon. Her heart whispered the truth she could not yet say. Everything had changed, and nothing would ever be the same again. A new beginning. The valley was quiet, for the first time in many years. There was no roar in the night, no trembling ground, no whispers from the forest. The beast lay still, its massive body broken, smoke rising from the wounds that fire and steel had left behind. The people gathered slowly, their eyes wide, their steps uncertain. They had lived their whole lives under the shadow of this terror, and now that shadow was gone, but they could not believe it, not yet. The alien girl stood in the center of the valley, her hands still shaking, her body covered in dust and scratches. Her chest rose and fell quickly, but her eyes were no longer only filled with fear. She looked at the beast's body, the nightmare that had ruled her life, and for the first time, she felt something she had never dared to feel before: freedom. The villagers whispered to one another, pointing at her, at the human. Some bowed their heads, others stared in awe. The elders, once full of doubt, could not speak. They had told her that fear could not be beaten, that the beast could not be challenged, but now the impossible had been done, not by them, not by tradition, but by a stranger, a human. The human stood nearby, his body wounded, his clothes torn. But his stance is still strong. His eyes scanned the forest, making sure the danger was truly gone. Then slowly, he lowered his weapon and let out a long breath. The alien girl watched him, her heart heavy with something she did not yet understand. She remembered his hand on her shoulder, his voice telling her not to run. She remembered his eyes, steady even in the face of death. And she realized that his courage had not only saved her people, it had changed her. That night, the village lit fires, not of fear, but of celebration. Food was shared, voices rose in song. Children laughed without trembling, elders wept with relief. The alien girl sat near the flames, her people finally welcoming her instead of mocking her fear. She had been the weakest once, the one who trembled more than anyone. But now they looked at her differently, not because she was fearless, but because she had faced her fear and survived. The human sat beside her, silent as always. His eyes reflected the firelight, calm and unreadable. She turned to him, her voice soft. "You changed everything," she whispered. He shook his head, pointing at her. "No," he said, his voice steady. "You did." The words struck her harder than the beast's roar ever had. She lowered her gaze, her heart pounding. Was it true? Had she changed? She thought of the girl she had been, the one who hid under blankets, the one who cried at every whisper. That girl was still inside her, but she was not the same anymore. She had walked into the darkness, she had lifted her weapon, she had stood beside him. And that, she realized, was courage. The days that followed were brighter. The people stepped into the forest without trembling. The children played without fear. The beast that had haunted them for generations was gone. Its body burned until only ashes remained. But the memory of it would never fade. It was a reminder that fear could destroy, but also that courage could overcome. The alien girl often walked with the human beyond the village now. He taught her more of his words, more of his ways. Sometimes she laughed at his strange habits, sometimes she stared in wonder at the stories he told of distant stars. Each day, she felt less like the girl who once trembled in silence, and more like someone new. One evening, as the twin moons rose, she asked him the question that had burned inside her heart. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you fight for us, for me?" The human looked at her, his eyes steady as ever. His answer was simple, but it carried weight. Because fear wins only if no one stands. Her chest tightened, her eyes filled with tears. She looked at him not as a stranger anymore, not as a visitor from another world, but as someone who had given her life a new shape. He had carried courage into her world, and in return, had given her the strength to carry her own. The forest still whispered at night, but now those whispers no longer ruled her. The shadows were still deep, but now they hid no master she could not face. The alien girl knew there would always be dangers in the galaxy, beasts in many forms. But she also knew she was no longer the same. She had walked through fear, and she had found courage, and all of it began with a human who refused to bow to the darkness. As the firelight flickered around them, she lifted her face to the stars. Her lips curved into the smallest of smiles. A new beginning had come, not only for her people, but for herself. And she knew one truth with all her heart. She would never live in silent fear again.